Welcome everyone to our monthly developer program webinars. We've been doing that for a while with a smaller audience, like for the last 3-4 months last year. And now we want to make that bigger, take it to the big audience. So first of all, for those who don't know me, I'm your host for today. My name is Vlad Lebedev, and I'm the systems architect for our Infinity platform. So the goal of our webinars is to promote and support Infinity, promote and support our platform for life science, and we want to keep this engineer to engineer. Our CEO, Tom Dolan, he got his own scientific advisory board, and we wanted the same thing for engineering department. We want to be in touch with engineers without the sales team, without support team, just have a more direct access to those people who work with the platform, customize things within the platform, and also those of our partners who are looking to deploy their own solutions using Infinity. So the whole goal of our developer program is, again, promote Infinity, and this is completely complementary program. We already have online community with forums, and now we're introducing monthly webinars. We're gonna have a special newsletter just for developer program members, and we're gonna have YouTube videos for all historical recordings and much more. So during the webinar, what you can expect during that whole process is, first of all, any Infinity developers questions that you might have, we're gonna try to answer them. Along me, there are some members of our engineering team, and if we cannot answer your question during the webinar, naturally we want to try to cover that in the next session or get back to you through the email. As a developer community member, you'll have access to additional documentation, everything related to scripting, APIs, anything that we can share, access to configuration and scripting examples, and access to best practices, how to do things and implement workflows the most efficient way. We're glad to hear your feedback, and if you want to share what type of work you've done with the platform, you want to share that with other members of the community, are very welcome. So our plan that we're going to have those webinars every last Friday of the month, and the next webinar is planned for next February, which is 28th, at the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And for those who missed this one live, it's also going to be available in our YouTube channel, and there will be a separate email about that. And for those looking to sign up for next session or sign up for community forums, it's easy to do so. You can go to community.ruro.com or send email to dev@ruro.com. So the format that we plan is a session sometime between 45 minutes to an hour. Normally, we will start with some introductions, overviews, give you some updates. Then we plan to do a featured presentation, something like a bigger, broad-scale presentation done by one of our engineers, and then followed by a hands-on session, more like an in-depth, small little details about how you can do certain things on the platform. All that will be followed by Q&A, and that's your chance to bring up any subject, any question into the discussion. So here are examples of some of the feature presentations that you can expect during this year. One of the frequently requested topics is best practices for the workflow engine designer, how to better design workflows. And during that session, we'll share not only the technical aspect, but also approaching that from the perspective of the laboratory workflow, maybe as a biobank or as NGS lab. So that's going to be a fairly interesting discussion. We're going to look at the power of our query engine, how that can be used to create searches and other grids in the system. Infinity APIs, separate discussion that we're going to cover how to use APIs to accomplish a variety of things. There will be a special presentation about machine learning, what already done in Infinity, what's already possible. One of other frequently requested topics is usage of formula UDFs, user-defined fields. And we're going to cover both using the query language and the SQL statements and Ruby code, everything that can be done within that particular area. We're doing some work on voice recognition, and sometime mid-year, we should be able to show you some very cool examples how we support voice recognition directly in the platform without any third-party dependencies directly in the web browser. And naturally, we're going to talk about Bricks technology, which is our prepackaged pieces of functionality that we can use to move configuration from one system to another, from development to QA to production. On the hands-on sessions, it's going to be more detailed. Some examples would be how to customize a form, how to do a layout, accessing web services from the script. We're going to look at transactions, how Infinity handles transactions on bigger records, how can you control transactions, and so on. And other things like uploading a file for the API call or sending an email, doing data validation and controlling dictionaries. So all that is coming during the year 2020. For those who are new, I want to reiterate what is the Infinity. At RURO, this is the foundation of everything we do as a company. Every solution that we deliver is based on our platform. And Infinity is 100% browser-based. At the heart of it is a high-performance database, which we optimize to handle millions and millions of records. And during those webinars, we're going to show you how to take advantage of that and use the database most efficiently. Infinity comes with the visual designer for the data model, how your data gonna be structured in the system, and also comes with the workflow builder, which gonna give your data a dynamic component. In Infinity, the only code you write is a business logic, means you don't have to worry about users, sessions, connections. You basically focus on what's important to you as a customer. And Infinity is a validated system. Every release that we're doing, and the current release is 7.3, is validated according to ISO standards. That validation documentation available to everyone who wants to see that documentation, and it's part of our delivery to every validated customer that we have. And naturally, the security environment for multiple users working at the same time. System is taking care of all authentication, passwords, user management. Again, the whole goal of the platform is minimize the work only to creating and defining the business logic. Today with me on the call is one of my colleagues, Jacob, and he's gonna do the first hands-on presentation. Today there is not going to be any featured presentation, just the short demo of that Jacob prepared, and after that we can take your questions and answers. And let's welcome Jacob.
Hi there. My name's Jacob, and let me share my screen here. What we're looking at is our list system. This is one of our main products that we build in Limfinity. And we're looking at particularly a patient. This is a dev system, so basically it's just some dummy data here. This should all be fairly familiar, the Limfinity basic layout. So what I'm going to take you guys through is the different ways to customize a form. Core of Limfinity is some buttons that cause things to happen, particularly maybe some forms to render based on these buttons, editing a patient or whatever. So the button we're going to focus on here is a pretty simple one for the purposes of illustrating the example. This one that says upload patient photo. So all this tool does is allows the user to attach a photo to the patient record. And one thing you'll notice about this is that, I can submit it right now without any patient photo attached, right? I can just click OK. It doesn't stop you from submitting a blank file, which is a little strange. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out how to fix that. So in order to fix that, we can add the required fields to the, you can specify which fields on the form are required. And in this case, we will make, hang on one second. Okay. So that should make the patient photo file required. You can see it gets the red asterisk and it gets, and then if I try to submit it without it, it won't allow you to. So that's very simple customization, probably the most simple. From there, we can do even more complex things by using the params UDF config option. So this allows you to specify the vast majority of customizations that we support for the fields that are listed here, right? So if you've picked some fields to be part of your tool in the script parameters section, you can customize them using the UDF config. So in this case, maybe the customer comes back and says they want to change the name of the field. So this is a pretty simple one you can do to change, this thing is a hash here. So the keys are the fields, right? And then the values are the customizations you would like to do. So one of the ones you can do is change the field label. Maybe the customer doesn't want to call it patient photo file. They'd rather just call it patient photo. So that can be done this way. So you can see now it's changed the name of the field. Change lots of other things this way. There's some pretty complicated ones you can do, making fields interact with one another through React. There's not time in this presentation to go through all of that, but I think documentation is available on it. So this is the simplest way of changing a form. So this is the best to use when you have, fairly simple form layout that doesn't change very much based on the subject, right? You can have significantly more complex forms that do change. Our new requisition form is probably the most complex in the system, and it changes a lot based on where the button's pressed and what inputs it has, right? So in order to do that one, we specify an entirely custom form. So let me take you guys through how to do that as well in one moment here. Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same thing except through the totally custom form. So basically just taking the same tool And rather than doing it this way, we're going to use the custom fields option. So this will specify a custom form, so we don't actually need to put in script parameters this time. Here you can use any UDF in the system, and you can actually specify totally custom fields that don't exist as UDFs as well, if you know a little bit of XJS. It starts with this UI encode fields here, which takes an array of objects to encode. They don't necessarily have to be fields; they can be groups of fields as well. And this here, this method, takes some standard parameters, the name of the UDF and the subject that you're interacting with, as well as the options. So I had this from a previous example, but if we want to change it to exactly the same as before, we just change this to patient photo. And this is how you do it through the custom fields method instead. So this should have the same result. Okay, great. And one last note, it's important to not mix these two, because you're going to end up with duplicate fields on the form. So, this is what happens if you mix the two. It's not, you're getting both the patient photo file and the one that we specified, the custom one that we specified, by bringing it in through a UDF. So those are the basics on how to, the two different ways of customizing forms, the one for simpler forms and one for, more complex, forms that have lots of JavaScript or customizations involved.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. Also want to mention that in our online portal for community portal, we have the latest documentation for version 7.3 of the platform. And that covers a lot of what Jacob has mentioned, including some of the examples how to do those forms and fields that do depend on each other. Also, we want to keep this webinar as a free-form discussion. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Now is the time. We are getting into Q&A part of the webinar.
Hey Vlad, it's Michael here. Just a quick question about the different properties you can have on for the UDF configurations. Is there a list of those anywhere?
Guys from outside, anyone want to answer that one? Michael, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, for the UDF configuration, there's a bunch of different properties like field label. Is there a list of those properties anywhere?
Sure. Those are direct attributes from the underlying UI framework that we use. If you
and that's X.
Yeah, that's XTJS or the new name Sencha. If you Google that, that's pretty much all the attributes that are relevant to specific user control. And again, using that encoder that Jacob showed you, you can take code samples directly from XTJS and embed into the platform, into our dialogues.
Fantastic.
Good question. Anyone else? And don't be shy. Don't be shy. Again, it's a free-form discussion. Ask any question. Another option, send those questions in advance for the next webinar in the email. We'll try to cover that as well.
Hey, Vlad, this is Michael again. I guess I had one other question just about caching on UDFs. So I know we're going to talk about formula UDFs at a later stage, but I've got some formula UDFs that are generating HTML, and that gets put in a cache. I'm just wondering, I think we covered this briefly last time, how you're handling things that need to be cached. So our dashboards, for example, are pretty complex, huge amount of HTML. We try and render them on the fly. We're looking at 11, 12 seconds to load each one. How is that handled at your end? How do you guys handle complex dashboards like that?
Sure. For big complex dashboards, we usually avoid being real-time dashboards. They are pre-calculated either by schedule script, like every minute, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes. And they're going to be stored in one of the dedicated subject types just for cache in the dashboard. So you can create a subject type, call it, say, dashboard cache, and have just a single record that you can always locate and update with all your dashboard data. And after that, that record always contains all the proper values already calculated, and you can pull them in your dashboard when needed. So that's one way to do it.
Okay, what's the impact of a scheduled script versus, say, just running a formula UDF?
For me, it's kind of hard to say. Probably got to look at the specific example. It all depends how you schedule the script. If it's a fairly extensive computational job, you might want to put it like in a 5-minute interval.
And there is a code snippet available that we can post on the forums for checking to see if a scheduled script is already running, so that you don't get 2 copies running at the same time.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I can see a question in the chat from David. I'd like to pull in some data from the external system that has an API. Is there some documentation I can consult? Well, we're certainly going to cover that in one of the featured presentations, how to do external web services and external API calls. I think one option is using, as you know, the Ruby programming language is the language of choice for the platform, and you can use Ruby pretty much full-powered Ruby, every single Ruby function in any scripts, in any tools. So to do something like that, to pull data from external service, I would create a run script tool, and in the after script section, use Ruby code to open a connection to the API. And that code is like a couple of lines that easily available on any Ruby user group forum. And we'll try to cover that in one of the upcoming webinars.
Great, thanks, Vlad.
Today's webinar link was sent on a little bit of a short notice, but for the future ones, we'll try to give you at least a couple of weeks in advance so everyone can schedule. I would expect next webinar there will be a whole lot more attendees. And realistically, if there is no more questions for us, I think we had a very productive session.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vlad. Thanks, everyone at RURO. Yeah, nothing more on my end.
All right. Hey, thanks, Michael. Well, it's been pretty much half an hour, so I think maybe we conclude for today. And we'll talk to you next month. And certainly be sure to send some emails, some comments, some feedback. Sign up for the community forum online and look for the follow-up emails.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Vlad.
Hey, thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye.